Hi gamers, Coach NJV here, and today we'll be going over the settings feature in Valorant to accelerate your progress. Settings in this game are a very important part of Valorant, and before you start your journey, every player here should optimize their settings to have the best gaming experience possible. Now when you first launch into the game, you'll be met with a tutorial. The tutorial will give you a rundown on how to play the game and the basics of the game, like movement abilities or shooting the gun. But before you get into the tutorial, I really want to get into settings and what is contained in it. Once you open the settings by clicking escape and seeing these menus, you will move towards the general tab first. I'll admit this may seem very scary to newer players, but this is what this video is for. Now let's head into the accessibility tab first. This tab will just give you a few options of languages you can use in the game, and you can use like many different options. Now let's move on to the enemy highlight color. Enemy highlight color is mainly used for people who have color blindness, but you can also use it for personal preference. Right now I am using the yellow enemy highlight color. As you can see, these players are highlighted in yellow, but this is the default red color, and you can always use the purple color as well. This is all personal preference, but if you do have color blindness, I highly recommend using the feature that is catered towards you. Now let us go to the most important section of the settings tab, the sensitivity section. This is very important for gamers and players that are in the FPS scene. Now, if this is your first ever FPS game, I would highly recommend using a slower sends. Slower sends meaning compared to the average trend of players, this would be, if you're using a 400 DPI mouse, a 0.4 or 0.7 sensitivity. If you're using a 1600 DPI mouse, I recommend using a 0.1 to 0.17 sensitivity. And if you're using 800 DPI, I recommend using 0.2 to 0.35. Me personally, I use 0.24, but this is all personal preference. You have to mess around with it. Go into the range, go into tutorials, see what is best for you. Now, as you can see here, there's a scope sense multiplier and an ADS sensitivity multiplier. I recommend using one. This means it is proportional to your sensitivity. When you scope in for certain guns, it'll stay at the 0.24 sensitivity. So this will block off the confusion and you having to adjust to a different sense just because you ADS. I recommend using invert mouse and raw input buffer off, unless you have a preference towards an inverted mouse. Alright, let's move on to the second most important setting in the general tab, the minimap. Once you get more comfortable playing the game, you will find yourself looking at the minimap a lot. And for newer players, I highly recommend using these settings. These are all personal preference. You can play around with these settings, but this is what I recommend. Rotate, keep it on fixed. Fixed orientation, keep it on base on side. Keep player centered, off. The minimap slider is all up to you. If you want a bigger minimap, put it at max 1.2. This is what I usually play with. If you want it lower, put the slider down. You can see the difference here. Zoom makes the minimap zoom in. If this is completely zoomed out and this is completely zoomed in. This is what I use just because I like looking at my minimap a lot during the rounds. Keep minimap vision cones on and show map region names as always. This is a really important feature for newer players. As you can look at my minimap, you can see this cone of vision. This is what my teammates can see on the minimap of what I can see. And in Valorant, you can't see what your teammates are seeing, so this is a very important feature. If you're holding a different section of the map, you want to know what is being guarded from your teammates. Now, if a teammate's holding this part of A main, I can safely hold this part of the map because I can look at my minimap and tell that my teammate's finishing cone is looking at A main. That's an example of why map vision cones are very important. Show map region names, as always, is extremely important for learning sections of the map and learning callouts, because this is an important feature in Valorant to give your teammates information. As you can see, you can look at all these different names: A main, A site, A rafters. You see an enemy, make sure to tell your teammates, I see one A rafters, things like that. You don't have to study these, but while you play the game, hold caps lock or whatever your map button is, M, caps lock, whatever, and just say, oh, there's an enemy pizza, there's an enemy market. Practice that, get used to that, and it'll be important for your journey in Valorant. Alright, once you look deeper into the general tab, you'll see many different options. This can seem scary, but this is what I use personally. Now you can fiddle with all of these settings. If you want to learn more about these settings, just message me on Discord, NJV #6329. Now let's move on to the next tab, controls. If you're new to the game, I highly recommend using the default settings so you can get used to the game. I personally really love how Valorant did their default settings, so I highly recommend using it. But if you're coming from other games such as Overwatch, you can change your ultimate ability to Q or whatever you feel like you need to have a more comfortable experience here in Valorant. Now, let us move on to the most important section for FPS shooters. A lot of FPS gamers, if you're out there, you know this is very, very important. The crosshair tab. And I am currently using the default crosshair. I highly recommend not using this crosshair. I highly recommend using a feature we have in Valorant, is where you can import a profile code, paste your profile code here, and import it, and it will be an imported crosshair for you to use. I will personally be sending you guys my crosshair for you to be accustomed and have a comfortable, good crosshair to use in your first few games. Now let's move on to the video settings. Video settings I recommend are these settings right here. These settings are just used to optimize your FPS, make sure you have a smooth gaming experience, and you do not have any frame drops or anything like that. But if you would like to have a better viewing experience or a comfortable, like, casual experience, all material quality, texture qualities, you could change these to high, and it'll make your game look a lot better. Now let's move on to general. Make sure your display mode is on full screen. Make sure your hertz is what your monitor uses. And yeah, let's move on to the stats page. Stats page, the one I highly recommend using, is client's FPS to text only. This means if you look at the top left, you can see my client's FPS. That is how much FPS I have currently, and you can monitor this whenever you want. And you see frame drops, once you monitor at the top left, you can go to your settings and fiddle with it, see what improves your FPS more. Now let's go to audio. Audio is entirely up to you, but I highly recommend using a higher audio. This is because footstep noises, ability noises are very important in Valorant. You want to make sure you can hear these footsteps. So make sure to keep them at least higher up, but I would not recommend moving it down. Voice chat button is entirely up to you. This is how you communicate to your teammates. And yep, that is all the settings that you need to know for Valorant. Congratulations, you finished your settings and they are completely optimized to start off your Valorant journey. Thank you for joining me and have a great day.